Hey everybody, welcome back to Football Talk with Vinny. In today's video, we're going to be going over the Chicago Bears. So with the Bears, we're actually on the 20th team now, so almost done, about 2/3 of the way there. So with the Bears, let's get right into it. We'll go over free agents that they lost first. So really, one guy that they cut was Kyle Fuller, the cornerback. He actually signed with Denver. They actually just released him about a couple weeks into free agency. And then they did lose an offensive lineman, Charles Leno. He played 98% of the snaps for them. So again, that is a valuable starter that they're losing, especially on the offensive line. So you're going to definitely need to replace that for whoever is going to be the quarterback for you. Now, in terms of guys that you re-signed, you did tag Allen Robinson, and then also were able to come to an extension with Deshaun Gibson. And the last of the re-signings was another offensive lineman. It was Jermaine Itedi. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but again, he played significant snaps for the Chicago Bears on the offensive line, so a much needed position as well. You know, again, he did play significant snaps, so I think it was a good idea to re-sign someone like that. The offensive line for the Chicago Bears wasn't great anyways, so I don't think you can afford to lose some of the players that actually played for you last year, unless you're going to replace them with better, higher level starters. Now, in terms of guys that you signed, I didn't really see too many big name guys like Desmond Trufant, and then obviously Andy Dalton were the two big ones that come to mind. So they didn't really do too much in terms of trying to improve their team through free agency. Obviously with the quarterback, that is the big one, right? Of course, with letting Mitchell Trubisky go, you now are in search of a quarterback. So I think when they signed Andy Dalton, it was kind of a, we need somebody, so at least we don't have to worry about going into the draft and not having a single quarterback on the roster. With that being said, actually, let's get right into the draft. Obviously, they made the biggest shock of the draft, trading up all the way from 20 to 11 with the Giants, and giving up next year's first-round pick to go ahead and grab their hopeful quarterback of the future in Justin Fields. Huge move if you are the Chicago Bears or fans of the Chicago Bears. You obviously will hope Justin Fields can come in and play very well and be that franchise quarterback that they've been really looking for forever, it seems like. If he comes in and he plays well, no one will care that you gave up an additional first-round pick for him. Now, let's quickly go over the rest of the draft. So in the second round, they were able to draft an offensive lineman in Tevin Jenkins at 39. Then at pick 151, going to quickly go over the rest of these. They took another offensive lineman, Larry Borom. And then at 217, they took a running back, Khalil Herbert. At pick 221, they took a wide receiver, Daz Newsome. At pick 228, they took a cornerback in Thomas Graham. And at pick 250, they took another offensive lineman in Kairos Tonga. So again, I like to focus on kind of those top 100 picks, because usually those picks in those first 2-3 rounds, those are the guys that actually end up starting for your roster and making a significant contribution. Yes, of course, now with some teams, there will be picks that were late round picks this year that do play and play well, but for the most part, it's hard to really count on that happening. So if we just really focus in on those top 100, it is really only 2 picks. So you took Justin Fields and you took an offensive lineman. So if you are a Chicago Bears fan, I think you have to love those picks, because again, you took the quarterback, hopefully, of the future, and you took an offensive lineman to protect the quarterback of the future. And now, obviously, if you probably are fans of the Bears, you hopefully think the future is now and this season. I don't know many people who are actually excited that Andy Dalton might potentially be the starting quarterback heading into the season. I think everybody wants Justin Fields to play. Obviously, if you are the head coach of the Chicago Bears and the general manager, you're only going to play Justin Fields if you feel he's ready to play, right? The worst thing to do is to put him out there just because the fans want him out when you know he's not ready, because then he'll get into the game and he will look bad. He won't know the play calls, right? He won't know the audibles, and he'll just look really bad. So hopefully he picks everything up pretty quick. Obviously, it's not like last year's draft class where they had to deal with COVID and not having a training camp. So thankfully, this year's class doesn't have to worry about that. But again, I think it's actually an open competition if you're the Chicago Bears, right? If Justin Fields is able to play better than Andy Dalton, then he's going to be the starter. So we'll see. Either way, though, if Andy Dalton's a starter, I think if he starts to play bad, you'll start to maybe, hear, hey, let's get Justin Fields in, let's get him some reps, let's get him some playing time. I just think it's going to be difficult because, again, The Bears are a good team. They did make the playoffs last year, and their offense doesn't need to be good to make the playoffs. So with that being said, even if Andy Dalton is struggling, if they're still winning games, it's going to be tough to put the young quarterback in. Because if you put him in, it could go the opposite way. He could turn the ball over more than a veteran quarterback like Andy Dalton. And now you're losing those close ball games, and now all of a sudden you miss the playoffs because of him. So you never want that to be the case. So I think it's just going to really come down to practice, right? And unfortunately, that's not something that we as fans are going to get to see. But if the head coach sees that Justin Fields is outplaying Andy Dalton in the reps that he's getting, then I think he will get a very good he'll get a very good shot to be the starter. Now, in terms of the regular season itself, I do have them as a fringe playoff team, kind of like they were this year. I think their defense is still going to be elite. And then again, with that offense, you just need it to be okay. They have David Montgomery. Hopefully, if you're a Bears fan, they kind of run their offense through him. You do have a star wide receiver in Allen Robinson. So you have some pieces so your offense won't be too bad. And again, it'll come down to quarterback play. If Andy Dalton can play decent, I think the Bears can easily make the playoffs. If he struggles and then you have to put in Justin Fields, then it'll just depend on how Justin Fields plays when he gets in. So if I had to give a range for the Chicago Bears, I'd say anywhere between 7 and 10 wins. I think you get closer to that 7-win mark if Andy Dalton struggles and Justin Fields come in and he also kind of struggles a little bit, maybe turns the ball over some, then I think you're closer to that 7-win mark. I think whether Andy Dalton or Justin Fields, if one of them can play consistent football and just not turn it over, I think easily you can see the Bears winning closer to 10 games. Because again, in that division, you're going to have 2 easy wins against the Lions, but now that Aaron Rodgers is back, it's going to be very difficult to beat Green Bay. But maybe you could split with Minnesota, so you get about 3 wins in the division, and then you have, again, about 11 games outside the division, and if you can win about 7 of those. And so again, I think they have a shot at winning 10 games. But again, I think the fact that there's an additional team in the playoffs, if they win about 9-ish games, it should be enough to make the playoffs. I think they made it last year, and they had only won 8. So lastly, I wanted to go over the cap situation. So with the Chicago Bears, they actually have $6 million of cap space for this season. And for next year, they're going to have $36 million. So again, the Chicago Bears are in a pretty good spot to where if Justin Fields shows, if he gets to start at all this year, if he shows he is the future at quarterback, you have significant cap space next year to maybe sign maybe a couple offensive linemen or another weapon to kind of start surrounding Justin Fields with the talent he needs to be successful. You already got an elite defense. So again, using some of those resources that in terms of cap space on the offensive side of the ball, I think would be a good idea. But that's going to do it for the end of this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you did like it, make sure to hit the like button as it does help out the channel a lot. And also consider subscribing if you're not already subscribed, as that helps me as well. But again, thank you guys so much for watching. I look forward to the next video. Bye.